construct. We are still missing some people, right? We are going to start looking at chapter 9, one sample t-test. What I did, you do not have to open the textbook. All the things I gave you, if you go through these, that should be plenty for you. Because these are copies from the textbook. Okay. Let's see what we have done so far. We have used, first thing we learned z-score. Then we did sampling distribution of means. We did a z-score there. Hypothesis testing, we are still dealing with z. So we did all those things. And when you are using a z-score, if you look at the third line, the z-test requires knowing the value of population standard deviation, which is the sigma. Information that is in fact not usually known. So practically speaking, we don't have the information about that right away. So a standard deviation, but we need a standard deviation because we need to calculate the standard error, which is needed in turn. Remember the z-score formula for hypothesis testing? The denominator is so that is the standard error. So we need to get this information, we have to have this information and this one to calculate that standard error. Now, it is saying that even though we cannot calculate the population standard deviation directly, we can estimate that by using n-1 in the standard deviation formula. And this is the formula which is given on page number 71 of your textbook. So standard deviation, remember the formula we used earlier for standard deviation? We calculated the variance first, then we took the square root of variance. But this is a different formula they are giving. We can use this formula to calculate the standard deviation. So they are saying we can use this this formula for the standard error using this one. So the statistics used to test hypothesis about population mean when that sigma is not given to you. Okay, in hypothesis test, in that one, when you are using this formula, this is given to you. Now they are saying this is not given to you. When it is not given to you, then instead of using a Z statistic, we use a T statistics. So before it was Z, and in this book it says Z obtained. So instead of Z, we are using a T. And that's the formula we are going to use in this one sample T test. Okay? So what is this T distribution? Again, the whole idea is based on the same issue. We are assuming that it's a bell-shaped curve, and if you look at further down, right around here, at the bottom of this page, the T distribution is actually a family of curves, meaning depends on what is your sample size, that normal curve, it varies from one sample to another sample. So it's a family of curves, the normal curves, depending on your sample size. What are the other things we are going to use here? When you are, if you look at the last page of your handout, I have given you guys a copy, I copied it from the textbook, the critical values for T distribution. Remember, for hypothesis testing, we looked at the alpha level, then we decided whether it's on the right tail or the left tail or it's on each tail. Looking at that alpha value, then we found out what is the corresponding Z value for that point, which is the critical value, critical point. Remember to this here. We find out the Z, this point here, based on your alpha. We are not using Z here. So now here we are going to use the key. And that's why we are going to use this table. And this alpha is still there. If you look at that table, first thing it says level of significance for one tail test. So we are still going to do our H sub 0 and H sub 1. We are still going to write down our null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. We'll still be doing it. Then we'll be still using that level of significance, which is the alpha. So looking at the value of alpha, looking at the question, we will decide whether it's a one tail test or two tail test. So those things are still there. So everything is same, except instead of the Z, we are going to calculate a T value. And we are also going to have something called degrees of freedom. If you look at page number 122, that is the second page?
Yes, at the top.
Second page of your handout, we use this thing called degrees of freedom, which is n minus 1. 10 minutes.